Good evening, viewers. Welcome to yet another episode of UNN The Tower. You are welcome once again this evening to have a discussion of what is going on in Uganda, and we hope everything is going on well in your side, to your side. Right now, Uganda is experiencing a big hit of COVID-19 that is taking plenty of our people. Mostly hit is the elite class. This week, the president forced Uganda to a lockdown. Unfortunately, the economy is not catered for. One wonders whether the lockdown is a solution to the problems. Other pending questions that need to be answered is that many of the people dying are already vaccinated. What's the science for that? With me in the studios, I have Mrs. Elizabeth Wamala, our usual participant and discussant in this show. Welcome aboard, Mrs. Wamala.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure having you once again this evening, and I hope we shall have a wonderful discussion as we go through what is happening. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Another guest and special guest for this show is Madame Lydia Natolo, who is the Vice President of UNA. Welcome to the show, Lydia, and I hope we're going to have a share of what is going on in Uganda, and I hope everything is going to be discussed here, because being a professional in the field, I hope you have a great grip of what can be done and what is the problem, what the gap that might be covered in the regard.
Thank you so much, Dr. Joko. I'm humbled to be here.
It's a pleasure. And people are anxiously waiting as well to hear from you, being our special guest tonight. And I have on the table as well, Desire Nakauka, our usual analyst. This show is going to be a different one because we have the professional, we have the analyst, and we have another profession. I believe Madame Lydia is going to bring in the expertise in the healthy field, and then I would love Mrs. Wamala to bring in the expertise in the psycho element of it, and then Desire will gonna bring us that experience of general analysis and trying to bring it to rest as we discuss. Thank you very much. Today, as I've mentioned, we have various topics to analyze, and let me start with Mrs. Wamala. One of the outstanding problems that we have experienced this week is the problem of the crisis of COVID. COVID has become a big problem. It has taken many of our friends. Actually, today I've lost my lawyer in Uganda. And a lot of questions are being raised, and people are wondering why the elites now. Two, are we really, people are having other questions. Is that a myth or a reality? Given the surroundings that rotate around the issues that really people are bringing forward. I want you to get sense out of that by trying to analyze the curtain behind this kind of saga or kind of situation.
Can I start by asking who your lawyer was?
Yes, Tebusweke.
Okay, Tebusweke. I know Tebusweke because he was the first lawyer I approached about, after my husband had been murdered. He was the first lawyer I approached. Even though we never worked together, like I moved on to another person. I know him from just that one contact, and he told me quite a lot about himself and about his job as a lawyer in Uganda. because he had suffered as an acid attack, and so I'm leaving that to the side and going back to how the country is coping with this. For me, it is quite a myth. Why anybody that has been vaccinated is now dying? I have proof because I've also had news from my own family that one of my cousins has passed, but she had had 2 rounds of vaccination. She had had the full dose. So the question remains, why are they dying if they've been vaccinated? But at the same time, I can help our listeners to understand why this could be the case. So here in England, coming from a health and social care profession, I want you, all our viewers, to understand that we were vaccinated by the same trust that we work under. It's a mental health trust that I work under. And we were tracked and asked to go back for the second vaccine on a certain date. And that was very well monitored. So I don't know how Uganda is tracking these people and whether they're having the same vaccine as or like the one they had in the first instance. Like, because I was vaccinated, if you're given a Pfizer vaccine, I would expect you to have, I would expect your second dose to be a Pfizer. Is that what they're doing? Because I understand that by the time some people had had their they had had their first, but by the time they were due for the second one, the vaccines had run out. So have they received the same kind of dose, or are they giving them something very different from what they started with?
Right.
Because otherwise it's getting quite complicated. I think it would be quite complicated to come across as very complicated even to the scientists.
Right.
The only problem is that people are dying. They're not given, we don't have postmortems to identify who is dying of what, because here in England, I mean, I've lost a nephew and I know the process very well. There was a myth that COVID was only affecting people above a certain age, people who had underlying issues and so on and so forth. The second wave that hit Britain was killing people in their 30s. So I can confirm or reassure you that they made an effort to make sure that they understood what had killed my nephew, because he was only 30 years old, and for a good 8 weeks, we didn't get the body until they had actually clarified exactly what had killed him. And they said it was a heart attack. Yeah.
Right.
So Uganda, people are dying and are being buried without any post-mortems being carried out. So how are we going to, to recover from this if we don't know what is actually killing us? You're telling us that these people have been vaccinated and have had 2 rounds of vaccines, and yet they're dying. So what exactly is killing them?
Yeah. Actually, when you look at the situation, even the banning kind of way is also worrying, because they don't allow people to see their owns as they are being taken for burial. I mean, that also brings the suspicion, right?
It's a psychological torture, because they've taken it upon themselves to act like they're acting from the powers from above. Mr. Museveni does what he wants, and he issues instructions that these people are supposed to abide with. Here, people who have died, I mean, I've heard their loved ones bury them. You're allowed to go and see them, but I don't know what is going on in Uganda. But it is indeed worrying, and for most people, you will find dying is one thing, but not being able to say goodbye to your loved one is even more traumatizing.
I know.
So I don't know how we're going to recover from this, especially when we have a president or someone that is standing in the place of a president, but he has no emotion, no intelligence, or he's not emotionally attached to what is going on.
Madam Elizabeth, being a person that has studied a lot of psychology, and there is another issue that people are talking about, that the stigma behind the COVID issue is also killing other people. Because now when you go to social media, everything talking about somebody has died, so-and-so has died. I mean, it's about death all over. And that has to do with the psycho element of individual, of people. There's some people who cannot, hold that kind of grief into their hearts when everyone is talking about death. What do you talk about that issue of every time of social media, on our platform, people are sending messages of death? Does that also affect other people that might not have died, but to die with such a kind of grief?
Obviously, if you become unwell and I mean, at the moment in Uganda, you would expect somebody to think, even if they're suffering from something else, it is very easy to think that you have actually contracted the virus. So that alone can kill you. There is, I mean, history has it that for people who cannot cope with grief very well end up dying when their partners pass on. It is
That's
very
true.
common in Britain, especially if the wife dies first. It's easily predictable that the other person will follow suit in a matter of months, if not weeks. So I've spoke to my sister this morning. She's a nurse. And unfortunately, I haven't been following the social media as much. But she has told me that the children dying in their 20s, like teenagers are dying. So it is quite, I don't know. I think people are overwhelmed. There's heartbreak. There's so many people dying in one family. And I don't know how Uganda is supposed to be coping with the fact that people are dying. So if you contracted anything, even if it's a simple flu, the fact that you know that there's no treatment in hospitals, that alone will give you, will walk you to your grave quicker than you would. If your heart is not coping with what is going on, it's psychological torture. And the body has a way, or the immune system has a way of breaking down once your coping mechanism fails you completely, So we will find that some people are not dying of COVID, but dying of worry, grief, the psychological
stigma. Yes,
effect,
the stigma.
And the impact itself, knowing that you're actually having to deal with such an illness that is as dangerous, but there is no treatment. Well, we knew there's no treatment here, and we were overwhelmed. Even though, we have experts here, we have ICU units, we have so many hospitals and so on and so forth. What about Uganda? We have always known that there's no hospital. When the ministers become unwell, they're shipped off to international hospitals abroad, So it is so painful to think how anybody is supposed to be coping with what is going on. For me, I think that it's the way things are going, most people are going to die not because they're suffering from any illness, but because of the environment itself, what is happening. if you know somebody that has died and were able or were well enough, like the lawyer you were talking about is a very good example. Obviously, it breaks your heart.
Sure.
Yeah, worry can run you down. People suffer from depression and they end up dying of heart attack. You know, that's
Yeah.
what worry does.
Thank you, Madam Elizabeth. Let me bring in Madam Lydia. Lydia, being a biologist and knowing a lot to do with this body function, I believe something must be elaborated here. Some people are saying that there is need for a wave to come in and then other people, to sweep away some other people. And those that will resist, whose bodies will resist this wave, are the ones going to survive. Would you please pass us through the biological element of this COVID-19?
Thank you so much, Dr. Joko, and I want to appreciate Mrs. Wamala for explaining that other part of this disease. I want to share with our viewers really what this virus is. It's one of those strange and actually lethal viruses that we've seen through the years. Some of us were not born. The flu, just the mere flu we have now, that was also dangerous and lethal. People were dying just like we're seeing people die now with COVID. So COVID-19 is actually, it comes from a family of coronaviruses. I just want to give a clear picture of what this virus is all about.
Yes.
And it's also part of, just like the flu, it's called the SARS, the severe acute respiratory
Okay.
symptom. And that's why it affects the lungs. It goes through your nose, your mouth, your eyes, which is ridiculous, and then it goes right into your lungs. And that is why, because some of the times doctors cannot operate on the lungs, and that is why it's dangerous. It gets into your lungs and it starts literally chewing up your soft tissue in the lungs. And that's why people cannot start to breathe well. When it starts to chew up, that virus, when it starts to chew up your lungs, it actually creates debris in your lungs. And that's why people get congested. They can't breathe. They have to go on oxygen. They have to go on ventilators. So, how did this happen? We all know what has it's actually a man-made virus. It was engineered in a laboratory. That's why dangerous it is. And when the minute it gets into your lungs, that's why it starts to do the damage. What Mrs. Wamala was trying to say, this virus actually has two different ways it affects the people. There are those who are called symptomatic. Symptomatic patients are the ones who have the signs, the coughing, the fever, the flu, the chills, the fatigue. Those are the symptoms, they show symptoms. And then there are those who are asymptomatic. Those do not show anything at all. That's how dangerous this virus is. They do not show any symptom. The best way to explain this, I literally narrate it to HIV/AIDS, where there are actually people who get HIV as a virus and they show the signs 12 years later. But then there are those who actually do not show the signs, but they have the virus. In a better way for us to understand how this virus is working. That is why when it hit here and I live in the US, first of all, our viewers, I live in California. And when it hit here, yes, we had to go in a lockdown. But of course, working in a hospital, I was actually on the front line. I was working in the main lab and pretty much bringing in all the stuff of COVID, how we are going to test the patients, all the testing. And I was literally in the space of everything. And I thank God that I never got sick, even up to today. But there's so many people who got sick. There's so many people who have not made it through. And actually, most of the people who have died here in the US and in the UK, Mrs. Wamala can testify on this, are actually the older patients. The older generation were dying just like what is happening in Uganda.
Now, Lydia, when we focus basically to Uganda and you look at what is happening, you find out that here's a situation that people that have been vaccinated are dying. And others, I was talking to some other friends of mine, they said they were vaccinated once and they were told that the medicine was no longer there, the vaccines were no longer there. Here comes a situation that those that were vaccinated the second time are also dying. And there is also another issue that has come out, that there is a way, the quick decomposition of the body of the deaths. And people were saying that within 10, 20 minutes, somebody has totally decomposed. It's decomposed and very stinky. The body is very stinky. So I want us to look at that situation. People are vaccinated. How is this going to, pull other people to come over to be vaccinated if those that have been vaccinated are also dying?
Thank you so much, Doctor. One of the things I want to bring to paint another picture, Mrs. Umara talked about it. These are people with pre-condition, existing conditions. Most of our people back home, of course, with our failing medical system, most of our people back home have pre-existing conditions. So when they get that virus, they are literally in harm's way of anything, even with the vaccine. Just like Mrs. Wamala said, I was reading about the percentage of the vaccine that was brought in Uganda. It was not even going to be able to take care of, we are 43 million people. And we know the number that was brought in the country. And of course, they had to go into levels on who to vaccine and not. So that means a lot of people were at exposure of this virus.
Right.
The problem is they closed down the country, but the airline is still going up and down. People are traveling. That is a problem with our country. And when they travel, we all know the strain in Uganda is actually one of the most dangerous strains we have. It's called the Delta variant from India.
Right.
So that is, it has started to also pop in here in the US and also in the UK. This variant is actually even killing young children, which was not the case here in the US. The first case we had was a 16-year-old who died, and that literally went global. So when we talk about the vaccine that was actually brought in Uganda, it's called AstraZeneca. It has efficacy of 63%. Follow those numbers, 63%. Efficacy means that is how much far it can actually be able to combat the virus. The one I took is Moderna. It has 92%. So you can see the difference already.
Okay.
It's not 100%, but it's 92%.
But I'm told most people in Uganda are using AstraZeneca.
That's the one that actually was sent to Uganda.
Yes.
So it's 63% compared to Pfizer is 95%. Moderna, the one I took, is 92%. And of course, while they gave the people the first dose, here when you took Moderna, 4 weeks later, you had to go back and get another dose. When you took Pfizer, 3 weeks later, you had to go back and get another dose. But when they give somebody the first dose and then they tell you that we've run out, you have to wait for another batch to come in, that lag of time, for me, I believe, is what is causing the death back home. But
okay, thank you, Lydia. I think we shall have another additional discussion as we go deeper into that. Let me bring in Desire at this moment to find out. Desire, there is something that I want you to look at the political side of this crisis. And how do you think the government is using this opportunity, to pass their political agenda regardless of the crisis?
Thank you very much, Dr. Juko. I think it's not only the government of Uganda, but when COVID hit globally, it all came down to governance and the systems of governance. And this was the time at which globally we could see systems of government and what works and doesn't work. COVID has proved that we need public health care to be stronger. Even your biggest favorite countries like the US and Canada were incapacitated. So when COVID hit, it was a proof of governance. So why African countries didn't have a lot of COVID cases came down to the fact that we faced things like HIV, Ebola, and all those other epidemics in our region. So we had like first aid to take care of the pandemic during that period of time. But now in a country whereby you're going to lock down people and you're going to still allow the traveling, we all know this is a passport disease. And the biggest problem is, how can you have someone who doesn't even have a Ugandan passport die because of a passport disease? It all comes down to leadership and governance, and these people are incompetent. Their the impunity is high, and they do not think they'll be held accountable. A week ago, the junta came on TV talking about the medicines that they have in store, and he actually asked the reporters, and this was about probably the vaccines. He was like, before we had low numbers, so we had no people to test on this vaccine. But now, probably claiming that not vaccine, he said, we have medicines we're testing. There's no accountability to tell us what these medicines are. So in general, we're living in a world whereby we are not informed, and therefore, and then next thing you know, they are the only ones with resources. So this is a problem. It is a problem that foreign tourists can still travel and enter within Uganda. And this is a passport disease, as it's been talked about. This is a disease that is traveling, and the hotspots were airports. And if you don't lock down and you still want to boost tourism, who is going to be affected most? It's the person who is working in those spaces in Uganda. And of course, only registered tourist vehicles are allowed to move on and about. Then the question is, who owns that? And who owns that industry? So I do rest my case on this, that this is a proof of leadership, and it shows us how incompetent the leaders are, and how there has been no strategy further, like our first few first aids, and it speaks to how weakened the institution of health has been made. And that is a problem.
Thank you, Desire. Thank you very much for giving us that insight. I want to bring in Lydia once again. Lydia, there is things that are really disturbing, and people were talking about the need to have, they were talking about the herbal medicine, which to me and to other people are very, very, very confident that it works in Uganda. And actually, when you look at some of those people, the older ones, they've been saying that these things have been working for them when it comes to, use of such medicine to their own. And people, it came out that it was saying that there's a problem with the medicine, the herbal medicine, that we shouldn't take them. What's your take about that?
Thank you so much, Dr. Juko. I wanted to actually to let our viewers know that when we talk about the vaccine, let me go back to the vaccine, and then I'll come to the herbal medicine.
Yes.
They are actually not injecting you COVID-19. Just like you take the flu vaccine, they're actually injecting you the flu virus. They are not injecting you COVID-19 in your body. What they're injecting you is called mRNA. It goes into your system and plays with it doesn't play, I don't know the right word to use, but it makes your immunity stronger.
Yes.
That when the virus comes into your body,
yes,
you can
it
be able
helps
to
to
combat
strengthen.
it.
Yes.
It strengthens your immunity. They are not putting COVID-19 in anyone's body. These vaccines are not COVID-19. I wanted to clarify that, because there's a lot of propaganda going around, and we shouldn't actually. If as we know the information, we need to tell our people what's going on. To go back to your question, actually, most of the medicines we have in the medical world come from the herbs, but they add some other sensitizers and chemicals and make the medicine they put on the market. A good example is chloroquine. Chloroquine was got from the back tree. That back tree is actually, there's so many of them in Uganda.
That's true.
So the white man looked at how our grandparents were treating, us with the back tree and those medicines, the herbs, and then he decided to take the back tree, sensitize it, and make chloroquine. So why am I saying this? Yes, our herbs do work, but it's how you use them.
Okay.
The basic principles that have been working, even me when I'm working in the hospital, even though I said I didn't get COVID, thank God. Um, I used to make ginger, lemon, garlic, though I did not put in garlic, but ginger and lemon. But additioning of garlic, that's a remedy. And I want to
Okay.
encourage everyone, even though you don't have COVID, please drink that twice a day, just
Okay.
for your own good being. You don't have to first get sick to start combating this virus. Have your boil a pot of water for 45 minutes with lemon in it, lime, ginger, and garlic. You can actually give it to the children too, but make sure in small samples because it's acidic. And also,
Okay.
you, even though you're older, don't drink it just because you know it's going to help you. No. Half a cup in the morning, half a cup at night is enough. And even though somebody's sick, because now we're here, we don't even have oxygen tanks in the hospitals. I mean, how is that even possible when the government received COVID funds the first time? And as we speak, there's $1 billion on the way. So just like Miss Desire said, we need to hold our government accountable. There's no way our hospitals cannot have oxygen tanks when they know we are in a crisis of COVID-19. So to answer you, I want to encourage your people, please drink that remedy. For me, that is what I will encourage our people, because lemon, ginger, everything is out there. There are so many people who don't have gardens. There's another, the other leaves I was watching that people are using to boil, and then you inhale that air. You cover yourself in a bucket after
Like
you
a
boil that,
steaming kind of.
and you
Like a
start
steaming.
steaming your face, pretty much clearing your nasal cavities and your eyes. So I just want to encourage everyone, please, it's important. Even though you're not sick, the
Okay.
least you could
Okay.
do is to do that remedy for the ginger, lemon, garlic, and lime.
Yes,
every day.
Madam Lee. Within just 2 minutes, I would like to chip in, Madam Liz, and as we try to wind up this topic and go to another one. Madam Elizabeth, would you look at the other element of the psycho element, as we mentioned it, that people tend to be, too much in the talk around over some things that are not working out. I mean, this is working out. They're bringing a lot of medicine online and all that. I mean, what's your advice to the people that are consuming all this information? Because sometimes at one time people are going to, to bewitch themselves when they, steam themselves a lot of herb. Some herbs are very witchy. And what's your take about that?
Some of them are going to steam themselves to the grave. This is how you should put it. But what can they do? I mean, the government has been very neglectful of our health needs. The hospitals are completely empty. I mean, there's no medication, there is no medicine, but there's no oxygen as well. I understand sometime this week there's a day 25 people died because there was no oxygen. Then the following day 35 died because there was no oxygen in the hospital. And you're wondering, I mean, what is Mr. Museveni doing? What did he do with the funds that he was originally, originally donated? It wasn't to him, but it was to the country. But he deals with all the money that comes into the country because he micromanages everything. So we cannot be speaking just to the Minister of Health. We need to be speaking to him. We have not been psychologically prepared for this. Here in England, we knew that the government was well aware of what was happening in China. It spread in Europe, and before it got to us, even us, we were caught I mean, we were half prepared. I heard on the news, people complaining about the materials that were used to protect the nurses and the doctors were not there. There wasn't enough in circulation, and a lot of doctors ended up getting affected, and many of them died in the first wave. So imagine what is happening in Uganda. How can you be psychologically prepared for what is happening?
Okay. Thank you so much. Let me, as we wrap up this topic, Desire, I want you to look at the element of the political dimension of the COVID issue, because here comes a situation whereby they are telling people to go. I mean, the crisis is there, but has the government done the best to make sure that they curb this pandemic? What's your take on that within 2 minutes as we wrap up?
In a few words, and not many, is if a government is tackling a pandemic and the first thing that they do is bring out the military on the streets to chase the people before they actually count how many beds they have, how many doctors they have, how many oxygen cans they have, what's the backup. I haven't heard of any government resources giving out oxygen cans for free. Everything has been monetized. Everything about COVID has been monetized in Uganda. And once it's monetized and privatized, then we have, as I said, COVID demanded for better public healthcare. And that means free healthcare for all that is accessible to everyone. And that was the loophole, because we look at the United States of America, they had a simulation 2 years ago during Trump's term that showed them how COVID would come and how it would affect the globe overall. But nothing was done about this. Why? Because a public healthcare system does not exist that is accessible to everyone when a global pandemic hits. Because you might think, oh, I'm rich and I have this money and I'll go to the hospital and I'll get the cure. But what happens when people that you go to the market to buy food from or that work around in your business have it? It spreads. It knows no salary, it knows no profession, and it knows no age. So in a few words, but many, government has not done a lot. They do not plan on doing a lot as it goes on. And on a global scale, as the world is going back to pace, let us take attention to the places that are going to be most affected. And the places that are going to be most affected, we're looking at formerly colonized places. You're looking at places like India. You're looking at countries on the continent. So this is also things as a peoples we need to take notice of, especially as the Western world claims to come back to sanity.
Okay, thank you so much. I think we're going to have a short break. As we come back, we're going to have the second session of our discussion. But as we go down for the break, don't forget to tune in as usual with all our social media platforms, the Facebook, the Facebook and our YouTube channels and the rest, as well as also our UNN radio is streaming live as we go. Thank you very much, viewers. Let's have a break, and as we come back, we go ahead. Don't go away from your laptop or your TV. Thank you.
It's UNN, yes, it's UNN. Owuliriza, owulikirize, okawerekerera, nohuliriza. UNN Radio, the voice of the revolution. Stay tuned.
Welcome back.
CNN, yes, it's UNN. Owuliriza, owulikirize, okawerekerera, nohuliriza. UNN Radio, the voice of the revolution. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to the second part of our UNN episode, the Tower at UNN. And we welcome you back to the studios as we discuss issues that are trending within a week. One of the great issues that have really trended in this week is the issue of the president forcing Uganda to a lockdown. This has really left very many people in wonders as to how and the way the government of Uganda is working out. Its system is really dilapidated and everybody is crying for of what is happening. Today, many people are in lockdown. Everybody is in lockdown, but they are not having anything to eat. Those that try to look around for something to eat will be beaten up by the government operatives. One wonders how the Ugandans are going to survive within the lockdown. And the question is really the lockdown the solution to this pandemic? With me once again, as I mentioned, I have Madam Elizabeth with me, I have Madam Lydia Natolo, and I have Madam Desire on this panel as we discuss issues trending around in this Uganda. Once again, as I start this session, can I want Madam Elizabeth to chip in as we try to look at the issue of the pandemic, the lockdown. I saw a really disappointing picture, Madam Elizabeth, that was showing a gentleman, a police officer trying, to power down a drum of milk because somebody was carrying milk and were going beyond the expected time and all that, and it was really powered it down, and everybody was really very, very much disappointed with that situation. Madam Elizabeth, I want you to have a deep glance about this issue and find out what really happened. What do you think Uganda is going to, if some people are not having that emotional intelligence, as you always mention about it, and somebody powers milk down when other people really would consume it in this real lockdown? What is your take about that? Madam Elizabeth, what's your take about this? Okay, let's have Madam Lydia. Madam Lydia, I think you're hearing me. You've seen a picture that was really very, really disappointing. The way the state operatives were really powering milk down. On that very note, you find out that a lot of people that are under lockdown, but they are really not having anything to put into their mouth. And Ugandan situation is usually people work for a day. What they earn a day is what they eat. What's your take about the situation?
Thank you so much, Dr. Juko. It is so unfortunate that we have a kind of governance that is militarized, whereby in a situation where people are going through such a pandemic and you lock them down, first of all, just like you said, our families live from going to work, earning a few shillings and bringing back home so that they can buy food for their children and their families and their loved ones.
Yeah.
So when you lock down people and there's no actually other plan for you to support the families, like as we know, last time on the first breakdown of COVID, they claimed that they gave people posho and beans, but then that did not spread across the entire country. Most people did not even get anything. People were literally dying of hunger. Families were breaking down. Parents became brutal, beating up the children. Woman and wife, wife and husband are fighting every day. But now we get to a reality of this actually more dangerous COVID-19 pandemic. And then you lock down the country. But on top of that, you send the military on the street, beating up people. That image, what I saw, a policeman literally pouring milk, that is somebody's earned money. Who knows, this particular person had bought this kind of milk and is actually taking it to sell it, or he's actually trying to get home before the lockdown starts. So it's so unfortunate that our governance is not for the people. The best the government should do is to cater to their people. The best the government should do should actually even make sure that do not put an entire lockdown on everything. If you can let tourists actually be in the country and have their life, but then you're locking down markets, you're locking down stores where people are getting their earned money, but then you're not even giving them any support, any financial support. The president of Kenya did a great thing. He literally made sure that he sent every family at least some money, But when you just lock down the entire country, by the way, just basic spaces, Kampala, because other districts are functioning, but then you lock down their stores, and on top of that, militarize them. I was seeing policemen in the streets of Kampala beating up people. I was seeing policemen stopping people not to go particular routes because they have to show their ID. If they don't walk around that area, they cannot go through. What if that person, that's their route to their workplace for those places that are open? So the impunity, the injustice, the lack of humanity, just the basic knowledge of knowing that there is a father who might have a sick child at home, or a wife of the husband who is homesick. So somebody asked a question, so what happens if somebody is sick with COVID at home? How do they take them to the hospital? How can you give a mandate that particular cars are the ones that will be on the street? What gives other people more priority to live and survive than others? So those are actually some of the things people don't understand, that stress can kill more people than even COVID-19.
That's true. That's very true.
So our government has to realize, re-engage, replan, because this virus is here to stay. It's not going anytime soon. They cannot imprison people in their own country, in their own districts. I saw the numbers they gave for Kampala district, for the city, 15,000 and something. And then other districts that I think are still functional, they're in 500, they're in 400. Where is that data coming from?
Okay. Thank you very much, Lydia. Thank you very much. Can I chip in, Madam Elizabeth? Madam Elizabeth, there is also another issue on the same factor of lockdown, that people are really grasping at their homes. They don't have anything they are giving out to their children, because the lockdown was announced at a time. I mean, they were given very little time to prepare themselves for that. Can you go us through the situation that you think is happening to the parents at home vis-a-vis children that have come out of their home, come out of their schools to to be home, and the issue to do with their pockets.
Thank you, Mr. Katelega. These families, not only are they did they scrape around for school fees for their children to return to school, little had they settled into the schools where they had sent them, then the president recommended that the schools be closed and all the children return home to the parents. We all know how difficult it is because the majority of us have relatives back home, and we usually chip in when, when it's time for them to go back to school. So I can just imagine how, they must be quite empty. They must have crept around and used every penny they had to send their children back to school. And now the children are back home, So where is that money going to come from? How could he even decide to close down the Chikuvo, like the wholesale district, without consideration that the majority of people, this is where money comes from. If we're not careful, the banks will not even have money for people to pick up from these, we call them cash bills here. Yeah, it is just unbelievable the way the whole situation has been handled. Mr. Museveni doesn't have, he shouldn't have the authority to do what he's doing without consulting. We have been through the experience here, and we learn through experiences. What did he learn from what happened? I understand these countries are more developed, but he could as well have picked a leap and see how the pandemic was managed and try to see how he could do it if it were to happen in Uganda. But I didn't think that it would happen. Because the first wave came, they ate the money, few people died. And who knows whether those people who died actually died of COVID. And he thought it was the end of the story. Yeah? I wanted to say something about the way the police officers behave towards us as human beings. They violate our basic human rights. They have no respect. Mr. Katelega, in this country, you cannot apply for a job to go into the care industry if you're not a caring person.
That's true. That's true. The empathy has to be in you.
You have to be caring in nature for you to take up, to study for such a profession. So these police officers, I'm just wondering how they're getting this job, because their role description is to protect us and our property. But instead they have terrorized us. I can look after my own health. Thank you very much. Why do you have to beat me up, to ask me to go home or to wear my mask?
Your mask, yes.
It's just unbelievable. In this country, we have a health system that is well set up to cater for every person, whether you're working or not. So it's affordable for all of us because everybody's entitled to it. Uganda used to have such hospitals whereby one could go in for treatment and not have to pay. Since Mr. Museveni came into power, he has privatized everything. I understand he didn't build that hospital, but he has privatized a part of it for people who can afford, the elite that can afford to go there, and the majority are left to scrape around, and it's just unbelievable. So for me, the way this thing is being handled, it's been handled very poorly, but he has never provided us with any form of accountability. He has gotten away with abusing our human rights. He has gotten away with using the public funds as if it was his own money. and has not provided even the basics for all of us, for all of the people that live in Uganda. So I am kind of devastated to think that the aftermath will, I mean, we'll never be able to recover from the aftermath, because people are dying and people are going to die. And he's not going to take any responsibility. In this country, Mr. Katelega, to cut a long story short, if you are not capable, I mean, it's about governing. It's about governance. He has failed in every category, and he's still there.
That's very, very, very disturbing, because if the government cannot care for its people and be accountable for its people, then that's no government. Within the note, let me chip in Desire. Desire, Madam Elizabeth is complaining or is expressing concern about the government that cannot cater for its own people. And she's saying that such a country cannot be reliable to the problems that are going on, because they are not feeling part of them. And because when you look at what the producer has shown up down there, there was a lot of hiking of prices of treatment within Uganda. And you find out that if you relate it with the economy and the per capita income of our people cannot, even 5% of our people cannot manage to cover up those costs as they come up, because disease, when any sickness doesn't come, I mean, at an alert, it comes at a time when you are not prepared at all. What's your take about the hiking of prices of the treatment vis-a-vis the costs? I mean, the economic situation in Uganda.
All right. So COVID has just managed to put this at the center stage. But Ugandans, we know that prices in hospitals have been very inaccessible and high a long time ago, to the point whereby malaria was killing people when Bill and Gates Foundation was investing a lot of money into research for malaria, donating a lot of nets, but still malaria was killing a lot of people. And that's because everywhere you went, you would go with a fever or a flu, and then you would have to be tested for malaria. All that was money. Everything costs money. So COVID, I just find, has put this situation as center stage, where you see a disease leading to the hiking up of prices. And this again goes back to the system of governance. Everything has been privatized and owned by a small class, which is the ruling class. But even at this point, you have a point whereby the junta comes on TV and says that this is happening because people didn't follow his directives. So where is the opinion of a medical professional to help the public understand what the vaccines can do, what the SOPs are, and how to go ahead with them? Why is it everything has to come from one man directly micromanaging everything? Then it leads to a system like this, where you have a small class that is again elected within his circle to own the resources, of which those resources were stolen out of public funds. Then you have situations where a bill can save 58 million Ugandan shillings. Banai Ugandans, 58 Ugandan million shillings. And that's just for a couple of days. So how do we expect someone who has been literally selling bananas on the street, or or a family that is middle class? Let's talk about we like to talk about the middle class community in Uganda. One that has a car, a fence. How do you expect them to afford this bill? If they're not affording it, better believe that the person below them and the one below them is not going to be able to afford this. So you have a system of governance that has allowed for economic sabotage, that has allowed for indignity, that has allowed for these prices should be illegal. And the fact that this is being put on media, and this is being backed up by media and posted out in a joking mannerism, it leads to a legitimization of this system. This is not how Ugandans should be treated. This is not how, as a community, we should be treated to access to resources, because they've been even donated.
And Desire, what is really very disturbing is that the people have really acclimatized. They have got acclimatized to all this kind of situation. You know, you don't hear them complain a lot about it. Things are happening, but they are not complaining. I mean, should we say that this is a kind of the way people in Uganda are reacting to situations? Or
how can you complain when you know the next time you complain? It's every time you complain, what we need to realize is people in Uganda are being repressed. People are complaining, and people said, no, civil disobedience, I will go work tomorrow. What does the junta do? The police is on the streets. People, civil disobedience, I will ride my boda tomorrow because I have to make money. What does the junta do? The military is again there. So in Uganda, we are seeing repression that is making it look like our people are not complaining or are not displeased by the situation, but they are. And they're doing everything within their means, but you cannot see their voices loud enough because repression has been happening for over years now. And it has been heightened ever since 2020. We've seen repression at its worst form in Uganda. And I don't think that's even the worst form, because we could go as back as 2000s to 2006.
So as we try to look at, let's go direct to the issue of the third part of our conversation, which is the issue of, you remember the president this week traveled to Congo, eastern part of Congo, trying, you know, to groundbreaking of the road construction in Congo of around 200 miles. That's what I said, kilometers. You can see it as an irony, because if you look at the president is going to launch the groundbreaking, and the people in Uganda behind him are dying, are seriously dying. I mean, what is this? How can you explain this politically in terms of what Uganda is going through? Desire.
One thing that we as Ugandans need to know is that we're not an island. We're surrounded by very many countries, and we are on the African continent. And this plays a lot into the politics that govern us. I am not surprised that the junta is building a road in the Congo. But even though they're building a road in the Congo, while the irony is, it's not even an irony. At this point, it's just demise of a people. You just saying you die. That is all that is being spoken out. It's just, people are just being allowed to die. And no one is batting an eye because it's people from a certain place or area. This kind of behavior in other places would cause for an upraise, would cause for people to call onto their governments for accountability, would cause for people to actually want to know more. But we need to look at the situation, or at where we are placed in the world and the politics that govern areas like that. So now that takes me back to Congo. Just because the junta is building this road in Congo, what good is that road? What good is that road to Congo? That also leads to very many questions. This is a place that has been riddled with so many wars that have been enabled by the junta himself. Our military spends a lot of time in the Congo, just playing a huge role in the continued massacres in the Congo, and all for what? For the exploitation of resources. And those are very important things that we need to be looking at. This road is not going to further go to the benefit of the Congolese people, but is actually going to help and abate the further exploitation of the resources in these areas. And that's something we should be keen on. And it's not a celebration or something we should condemn it because of what it's going to do to the Congolese people. And then we should also condemn the junta for how he has allowed people within our countries to die. Because I don't even think the money he got to build the road in Congo was his money. Of course, he was enabled by other bodies to go ahead and do that. And these bodies, if you could go do your research and find out more about them. This is a neo-colonial agenda that is happening right in our eyes. Therefore, that's why I say Uganda, we're not an island. We're surrounded by a lot of other countries, and the politics that govern all those countries around us govern us. So until the junta falls, the Great Lakes region, which is where Uganda is, we're in danger because incompetence and exploitive measures and repression are the only forms of governance that have been put in place.
Oh, thank you very much, Desire. Thank you. Let me bring in Lydia. Lydia, here is a situation that we have a crisis in Uganda. And on the other side, the president is in Congo, groundbreaking the construction of the road. I mean, how would you relate the two? I mean, here is a cry of the people of Uganda, and the other side, the president is extending a hand of happiness into another country. What does that explain to the people that are really on the ground to understand the situation? Because our role is to, enlighten to our people what it means. I mean, and how does it help them as to whether they are beneficiaries or not.
Thank you so much, Dr. Joko. I really want to commend Miss Desire for how she explained that. Again, it goes back to governance, bad governance, and missed priorities. I want to give an example.
Yes, I think we have lost Lydia. Let me bring in Madame Elizabeth as we try to get. Are we together?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we do now. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry,
yes.
I was actually here. I wanted to commend Miss Desire for how she explained. It goes back to bad governance.
Yes.
And mispriorities, misplaced priorities of our government. And again, does the regular Ugandan have a say in what happens in their country? Do they even send their parliamentarians to vote on such decisions? Just like Ms. Desire said, it seems it's just one person running the entire country on his own ideas, on his own agenda, and what he likes. Because
that kind of micro management system, which really doesn't allow other people to.
We never had parliamentarians talk about this railroad to Congo and how much money they're going to put.
Actually, the 10th Parliament, I think, passed it, and at the verge of the end of their term, they sat about it. And
they had to do it at the end of the term because they're rushing out. But did the people have a say on this? Because our government is not for the people.
Yes, that's true.
It's only for a particular family. So what does that even tell? We're actually getting loans from China to construct this railway. What does that mean for regular Ugandan?
And the burden is on the Ugandan. Yes, that's true.
Your children are going to pay this money. It goes back into your taxes. They raise your taxes in the middle of the night and you wake up, taxes have increased. So this is where it goes back to the people. The people have to start again. We know the fear. We know that you cannot go on the street and speak, but there's gotta be a way. We have the 11th parliament. You, the people, need to ask your parliamentarians to ask really heavy questions. You have to ask your parliamentarians to bring back that bill that was signed in the 10th parliament and ask questions. Where will the money come to pay off these billions and billions of dollars of loans from China? And why is China the one in Uganda? As though we don't have learned Ugandans who can take up these jobs. But also, we're talking about how Congo has been a hub of wars. Why the richest country to be the most impoverished? I did a research paper about Congo and the minerals in Congo. These funds we're carrying here, it cannot function other than it has a particular mineral from Congo. The Western world has used the neighboring countries to literally make the richest country poor. I saw an image of a UN truck that literally fell because, of course, they don't have good roads. It's just like Uganda. And the UN truck had minerals in it. The country has been destabilized for years. We are in the new age and a new wave, modern colonialism in our own country. And it's actually not the white person coming in to colonize us. It is us Black people colonizing our fellow Black people. Because we're earning something from it. Because we're getting power from the Western world. because we think the white person is for us. So we're going to work for them. So countries around Congo have been literally the machete killing the people of Congo, taking their riches and taking it outside in the Western world. And there's an agenda for that railway from Uganda to Congo. And again, we the people need to step up, because the Bible tells us that we need to love our neighbor as we love ourselves. Now that we know this information, Ugandans need to step up and ask questions. Why are we so interested in Congo? We are friends with a white person and we're stealing from the country instead of loving our neighbor. That is the agenda on the table.
Thank you, Lydia.
Right.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I would like to chip in, Madam Elizabeth, on this note regarding the Congo issue. When you look at what is really happening, Madam Elizabeth, Congo has become like a no man's land, whereby Ugandans just go and grab what they want and come back and take the way they want. And actually, the president goes there very happy. I mean, he installed a puppet down there that can allow him do everything that he wants, and then he goes construct roads, and then Ugandan's roads are very, very nasty and bad. I mean, what's your comment about this?
I want to appreciate the way Desire has explained it, but in a layman's language, if I can explain, Museveni is being used as a vessel. Museveni has created wars. I mean, he has been involved in stealing from Congo, but he's also being used by the white man to exploit Congo, to create wars. I mean, there is organized chaos. Whatever is happening in Congo is organized. There will never be peace because of the minerals that this country possesses in their natural resources. So Museveni, Salim Saleh, Kagame, I have actually information, and I think it's evidence via research that Rwanda at the moment is the leading exporter of platinum, and they don't have this mineral in their country.
That's very interesting.
It is very interesting. They don't. But they've created havoc in Congo. So they can, I mean, they take their mercenaries there and pretend there's war. They go there to try and save them. They're digging for these natural minerals. So coming back to the road, Museveni has micromanaged our country. I'm a good witness to that. Because no single system in Uganda functions without his involvement. For example, the security apparatuses, they all operate under him. So Ugandans have looked on whilst they're exploited, whilst their resources are being embezzled. Museveni has not provided a single service to the ordinary Ugandan or indigenous Ugandan. And this has carried on because he is an untouchable. Not only is he an untouchable, once you raise your voice, once you decide to challenge him, you will get murdered. So Ugandans have had to adopt a way of coping without these services because the strategies have failed. We have no way of voting him out of office because he's in charge of electing who manages the Electoral Commission. So we are kind of stuck with so many issues because of the way this man has decided to operate like a king that cannot be challenged. So going back to the road, we don't have roads in Uganda. Look at Kampala. You look around Kampala. For me, I had spent so many years here in England when I go back to Uganda, and I could not believe the amount of potholes on the roads in the capital city. You actually get very tired if you decide to drive on that road. Now, when I heard that this man is now building a road to another country, I didn't even think about who else could be involved in this road construction. I am thinking he's using the Ugandan taxpayers' money to build that road to fulfill his own selfish ends, because that is what he has done over the years.
Thank you very much. Thank you. As we try to wind up, I would like my producer to put the phone number that people can send their messages, and as well as calling directly to participate in this conversation as we try to push up this show. As we wait for the callers, Madam Elizabeth, I would like you again to deeply, within a few minutes, to deeply look at, because President Museveni seems to be playing his games as usual by trying, to make people focus on a different thing as he does other things and crafted things on one direction. And this seems to be very, very evident as he tries to, go to Congo, whereas people are putting their attention on COVID. He's in Congo trying to do something which people cannot see. Would you explain more about this kind of tactics that he uses?
Yeah. If somebody was doing it to themselves, in psychology, you'd say self-destructive behavior. For him, he destructs, and he has mastered that very well. And he uses the national televisions or the media houses within the country to do that job very, very well. But you see, when you think about the fact that we are not coping very well with what is happening, people are dying like flies in our hospitals in Uganda. There are resources that he himself should have made sure that these resources are provided for oxygen, medicine, and so on and so forth. And you also have to go back to the fact that most of the medication that we're supposed to be using in this hospital is actually donated to us by the US, by the European Union, and so on and so forth. But this medication is then stolen from the hospital under his very willful act. So for me, I feel like he was very insensitive. I don't care how he does it usually and gets away with it, but to leave his country in dire stress, the way the situation is at the moment, to go to another country to open up a road and show off the way he did was an abomination. I could not believe that he did that. I understand he's not as caring as he portrays himself. He's actually not a very nice person. But I think whoever is advising him, he must have gotten it very wrong this time. I think he shouldn't have done it. It is a disgrace that he did what he did.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let me chip in, Lydia. Lydia, you mentioned about the impunity of governments in Africa, which do not really at all mind about whether people seeing what is happening or not. They can continue to do anything that they want. Just within that line, we would like you to give clarity on that statement, because usually people think that the governments are doing what they are doing in reflection of what the people want, but Uganda seems to be a different story.
Thank you so much, Dr. Juko. And 100%, we all have witnessed how Uganda has evolved to where it is today. And as like the junta says it, that he came on by gun and no one can take him away. What does that statement mean? That means he will go when he wants. And we witnessed that through the elections. When we noticed masses and masses of people voting for a president they want. But then in the dawn of the night, electricity is shut off, just like Mrs. Wamala said that he literally owns the electoral commission. He's their boss. And what did they have to do? They had to declare him a president of the country, where people had another president they elected for. So that's impunity of the highest order, whereby somebody believes they're untouchable. No one can do anything to them. And he has made our people believe, actually some of our people, he has made them believe that he has brought peace in the country. But how can you go to bed when your stomach is empty? How can you have children when you can't afford to put them through school? I have a non-profit. I work in Kumi, never born there, didn't even know the road that leads there. Whenever I come to Uganda, I go to Kumi, but you can only see the livelihood of our people. It's actually the poorest district in Uganda. People are still living in grass-thatched homes, a family of 6. And in that same space, a little space, that's where they have the 3 stones in which where they cook food. So a child is going to grow up with asthma in a country where the medical system is failed. They're inhaling all that's coming out of the firewood. They barely have even nutritious foods. People are still going through an experience of a 20-year civil war that happened in northern Uganda. A lot of people don't understand what happened in northern Uganda. Actually, all the soldiers were based in Kumi district. So Kumi up to there, because all the help came to northern Uganda. When you go to Kumi, you literally cry at the sight of the livelihood of our people. People sleep on the floor. I mean, what kind of a leader goes to bed just because for him, his children get in a plane that is actually catered for by Ugandan taxpayers' money to be flown into another country to give birth, where there's better medical health? His family, just like Mrs. Omar said, everything is privatized. They're the ones who are owning all these great businesses and companies that were actually for Uganda, established by the previous presidents. What does that mean? Why is one family better than the others in a country of 43 million people? Why is it a handful of, even I think less than 100 of them, they own the entire country, almost? What is impunity? To say that, I need to talk about this. To say that the wife of the president is the Minister of Education, what does that mean? To say that most of the first family members have been in governance, are still taking over all the ministries. Do we want to say that Uganda doesn't have other people who can lead the country, who can take up these spaces? That's impunity. Because he orders in the middle of the night, and he says, no, let my daughter run this. How can you say that the company that's actually delivering oxygen tanks, which were empty, by the way, the members of the first family are the ones leading that company? Do you want to tell me we don't have scholars, actually doctors by profession, who can take over these companies and deliver real services to the people? This is where we are as a nation. And if we go silent and pretend that we don't see these things, woe to us. Some of us are in these countries, but 99% of our families are back home.
That's true. That's very true.
Good jobs. They've gone to school. Look at the system of education system right now. They made parents pay money within days. Children are sent back home. Why did they take them back in the first place? Schools were closed here. Schools were closed here, but they made sure children were studying. Students were studying in their homes. Why do you tell a country that you're going to send them radios? You're going to send them televisions and nothing happens? Why do we have these empty promises to our people?
Yes, Lydia, I think let me chip in Desire as we're trying to wrap up. Desire, Lydia is talking about the impunity that is really very prevailing in Uganda, and it looks like everyone in Uganda is just for his own self and God for us all. I want you to add your voice over the issue of the way Ugandans are really suffering vis-a-vis the hands of, the handful of people that really sharing all the treasure of Uganda.
I think that the evidence is very alarming to the situation at hand, to the point that how can one of the world's richest countries be one of the world's poorest country? Same applies to Congo, same applies, and you see this pattern play itself everywhere else. So then the problem then comes down to, why is this happening? Of course, as it's been mentioned over the panel, and I'd like to appreciate everyone who's brought it up, is our governance is bad. And our governance is not bad because we have bad leaders. Our governance is bad because the template that is being used all the time by each and every leader is to just make sure that a small group can exploit and enriching themselves, and the rest are left to perish. And those are the situations that we find ourselves in. And the solution just lies in rearranging that template to something that can actually work for the people. We need a people's dictatorship as early as yesterday, and not a system whereby the junta can even call himself a Pan-Africanist, which I believe he's not. We don't need a system where the junta can call himself a leader, because he doesn't serve the people. So who is he leading? So all those things are there as evidence, and we must look at these things and strategize our next points, because we need the people to be at center stage, other than us always talking about, because it's important to talk about the junta and what the junta has done, because that's the only way we'll know the system that exploits us in order to uproot it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. As we try to, within 2 minutes, I would love to have a wrap-up information. Madam Elizabeth, start with you as we wind up our program.
For me, I think, Mr. Katelega, that there is no...
Elizabeth, before we go ahead, let's have some audio. Someone is on. Okay. Can we go ahead? Yes, Mr. Producer, can we have the voice?
Good evening, Dr. Juko, Madam President, Mrs. Elizabeth Wamala, Madam Lydia Nator, so it's been a long time, and Madam Desire. This is Masana Smailia, but before I go further, let me also send my greetings, my warm regards to all those that are watching on YouTube, Facebook, plus all other media platforms of viewing. Thank you guys for your participation in today's program. I really do appreciate you, and continue liking the video and share it so that the information goes viral, so that it can reach to each and every Ugandan in the world. To me, let me start with the vaccination. That's AstraZeneca. For me, what comes in my mind every day that when I think of that vaccination, I think that this is another method of the government which is using to do what? To kill all the Ugandans. Because you can ask yourself, how comes that those who are dying are the only people who have been vaccinated? This is not a vaccine at all. It's a chemical weapon. It's a chemical weapon because the rate at which that people are dying is full of questions, my dear. And when we look at the lockdown itself, it may smell something. If they say that when you're vaccinated, you can't pass a virus to another person, then how comes they put there a total lockdown? Why didn't they allow those who took the vaccine to continue operating in the city or to any other place of work? And they leave only those ones who have not been vaccinated at home. But this is something hidden. There's a hidden agenda behind this. This is not a vaccine. It is a chemical. It is a poison that they are using to target people's lives. Because you can't tell me that whoever that has been vaccinated is the one who's dying nowadays. This is something else. This is something else. I think that Junta is implementing this system to kill Ugandans. There's an hidden agenda, by the way, because they look at which people are dying. And if you ask, they say those are the ones who have been vaccinated. Then was this really a vaccine or a poison? God should have mercy on Ugandans. Like as Madam Lydia has said, we as Ugandans, we have remedies. We can use to treat that virus. We can use to fight it. Instead of vaccinating the people. This is something hidden. This is something big. There's a hidden agenda. This is a chemical weapon. They are just targeting on how to get what? Donations? Maybe. That's why they are looking for a big number of people, big number of deaths, so that they can be able to get that donation. But this is playing with people's lives. These people's lives we are talking about. I don't know when God created these people. They are too heartless, very cruel and selfish. Imagine someone poor and weak on the ground. What was the agenda of that person? Was he trying to feed the spirits when the poor Ugandans are there? They don't have even what to feed their kids. They are too heartless. I don't know what Ugandans did to deserve all this. We've been punished to the maximum. We've been punished to the maximum. Sometimes I don't even want to look at the news because it breaks my heart. People are dying every time. People are dying every day. Now they have stopped to kill in the other method of kidnapping. Now they are using this method. This is not a vaccine. To me, I will never accept that this is a COVID vaccine. This is a poison. They are just targeting people's lives. I feel so sad. But thanks for the program.
Mukulu Kimbugwe nkulamusiza nnyo weebale nnyo byonna by'otuusaako engalo bannange tusiima.
Go ahead. As I mentioned, as we wrap up, I would like you to give your wrap-up message. Yes, Elizabeth, do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, let's wrap up, starting with you within 2 or 3 minutes to wrap up
Well,
as we go.
well, it is. I mean, I think it is okay for people to note that things are not going to change unless Mr. Museveni gave up power. We have tried to do it through the democratic means, and obviously he stage manages these elections and ends up the winner, regardless. The last one was actually a coup d'etat because he actually imported army, but mercenaries are not even armies. I was told they're mercenaries from other countries to come and protect his vote. It wasn't even a boy he was protecting to make sure that he won, regardless of who Ugandans voted for. The system has failed, it's on its knees, and it continues to be a problem at the moment. We have a pandemic that the Ministry of Health is very unable to deal with, and people are going to die, and there is no way out of it. We just need to bless ourselves with people. When I was there, the years I was checking up on the late Kamala's murder investigation, I used to see churches fill up, especially on the Friday evening, going into trans-night prayers. These prayers have not helped Uganda. I don't think anything can get us out of the limbo where we are at the moment, unless if we took, I don't know whether we should take up arms and fight him and get him out of, office. I don't know what Ugandans need to do, but I think we need to put our heads together. We need to start thinking on our feet, yeah, to try and see how we can save our country from this thing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Elizabeth. Let me have Desire as well have a wrap-up information, wrap-up message to the people.
Thank you so much. And just in order to wrap up, I would like to just echo what Mrs. Elizabeth has said. More than ever, we're standing at a crossroads whereby we're left with no choice. We cannot, it's like fight or, fright, and we can't run away because it's our country. So Ugandans, I'd be lying if I say there's any other option other than fighting and fighting for what is ours, because we're not fighting for anything that isn't ours. And for the most part, we're fighting for the most fundamental part that no one will give us until we give it to ourselves, and that's just human dignity. That's just the humane in us has been abused, not only by the junta, but has been abused by every other system that enables the junta to do just that. Because the perishing of an African life can never be a worry of anyone else other than us Africans. So I want to pour my heart out to everyone who's lost a family member, everyone who's going through this. And, it's hard to tell people to stay strong, especially when they're dealing with a virus that no one has been very informative about. The junta only gives directives, and no information is even given from a professional. And for people to take care of themselves, because no one will, and spread it to family members and advise them of how to better keep themselves safe. And with the vaccine, something that wasn't even told to us living in the Western countries was that the vaccine only reduces the symptoms of COVID. It's not going to treat COVID for you. And that was a fact that I think I should have been told before even considering whether I wanted to take a vaccine. So as that being said, I'd like to wrap up that we all know the systems fail and we cannot run away. So we have to fight.
Thank you, Desire, for the encouraging words that you've given out. And finally, let's have Lydia. Lydia, as you wind up, you talked about an organization that you're running which helps people. I would like you to express a little bit about it as you wrap up, and then you express what exactly the people can, because the people in the public here would like to know, and possibly the way they can help.
Thank you so much, Dr. Juko, and I want to echo the words of my fellow panelists. Indeed, we are at crossroads. Our country needs us more than ever before. Before I talk about my nonprofit and also the organization, the Ugandan North America Association, where I am the vice president, we all know what we are going through right now. COVID-19 is here, and COVID-19 is real. COVID-19 is killing our people. And again, my heart's condolences to everyone who has lost a family member, who has somebody in the hospital, or who is actually going through this. I want to encourage our people, this virus, something I forgot to tell you. That's why they say wear masks. When somebody who is sick sneezes, it takes 24 hours to leave a surface. Take this, 24 hours. You can easily touch it with your hands, and then you know how we touch our noses, our eyes, and it gets to you. This virus takes 3 hours in the air. That means if somebody sneezes or coughs, even though you're not there, and you literally just pass through that air, you get the virus. It's the smallest cell ever. You can't even see it. So that's why our people are dying. I just want to make sure people mask up. It's not a game. It's not a joke. I was watching pictures of people who are still going in clubs, who are still hanging out. No one is going to take care of your life other than you. Stay away from crowds. This is not a punishment, but rather it's a way of safety. If there's no medical system that will actually help you, there's no medicine even in the United States and the UK. When do you think it will even ever get to Africa? So the basic things you can do, wear your masks. Please do not go to big gatherings anymore. I have spent the entire year literally just going to work and coming home. It doesn't mean that I don't have friends to go hang out with. They've just started opening California as of this month. But for the last year and a half, we've been on a lockdown. And here it's not like they are policemen, but everything is shut down, so you don't have anywhere to go. So the lockdown is necessary, but the government has to find a way to help their people. That is what good governance is all about. Please, 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 it's okay not to hug your grandmother. Stay away from elderly people. Love them from a distance, call them, because they're fragile. That's why you saw when the kids came from school, now their parents are the ones dying. The kids are asymptomatic. For them, they're carrying the virus. Most of them don't have the signs, the symptoms. As we close down, as the vice president of this organization that literally is an umbrella organization for Ugandans here in the US and Canada, when I saw there's a video, I don't know whether our technicians will be able to show it. I saw a video of a gentleman literally washing disposable masks. And the water he was using, you could literally see that the water was dirty too. People are just trying to earn a living. I'm thinking he's been doing it for a while. So he was washing these disposable masks, and I'm sure he's putting them back on the market. That's already dangerous. So I said, as a vice president of UNA, I'm going to do something. So I started a GoFund page where the people can chip in anything you have. Even some of you are in Uganda that you can be able to give $5. You can be able to give $1. It can go a long way. I have people on ground in Uganda who are going to start making these masks. But this is the least I can do as Lydia Natoro. But I want to rally everyone who is watching us today to please, there is the GoFund page. Give whatever you have. I had stories that people are sharing masks. People are sharing masks. That's dangerous. At least get a piece of cloth and wear it. Do not share masks, please. It's important that we can do the things we can do in our own power. You don't have to have a fancy mask like the ones on the screen. Get a piece of cloth, clean it, And then you cannot wear that mask more than a day. If it's a cloth, wash it every night before you go to sleep. And wake up in the morning and wear it again. This is the only way we are going to combat this virus. Wash your hands. Do not think about the sanitizer, the fancy stuff, because now with the lockdown, you don't have a job. Don't worry about the sanitizer. Yes, it's effective. Use soap and water. That's the cheapest way to combat this virus. By the way, I want to assure you through the medical lens, soap and water is the most effective way to clean your hands. Make sure.
Wanje?
We can hear you.
Anaki ndibize. Ndibize. Ndibize.
Our fellow viewers, I think you've seen the reality happening in our own country right under our faces. So instead of buying those disposable masks that you don't know whether it was washed and pre-washed, picked on the floor, picked in an office, get a piece of cloth and put it around your nose and be effective. Don't cover your mouth. You need to cover your nose. Literally, your eyes are the ones that need to be open. But everything under your eyes, all the way to your mouth, you have to be covered. So without further ado, I'm so grateful to be here. Happy Father's Day to all the men on this forum. Happy Father's Day to all our viewers. And those of you who lost your fathers just like me, just know they're watching over us every day. And also I want to tell you, as a UNA Vice President, we're having elections in September. I want you to pray for me. I'm going to run as the next president of UNA. UNA is an organization for people, us in the diaspora. It's our voice, but we don't have that voice. You know, the government is worried about the people in the diaspora. The minute we have a strong organization that can actually stand up and speak against the injustices, the tortures, the killings, the bad governance of our country, the so-called people, IMF, who are giving money to a bad governance, will stop. They'll ask for accountability. They'll ask for transparency. That has not been happening. So pray for me, and those who have family members in the US and Canada, tell them Lydia Natolo is running for president. May God bless you. Thank you so much, everyone. Back to you, Dr. Joko.
So I think that Dr. Juko will make it back with us within no time.
Let me see. They need to say goodbye. So that was nice being here. I think we need
Totally.
to say our farewell to our viewers this evening. Can you, Karen?
Mrs. Wamala, you helped me share that GoFund with the UK family and friends out there.
I
I
will
appreciate
indeed.
that. And
I
Miss
will.
Desire.
Should we exit?
Oh, I think that Dr. Juko will be making it back to us in a minute, but definitely will, because more than ever, the diaspora is needed, especially the Ugandan diaspora, to
Totally.
have an impact on what's going on at home. Because as we've covered, if we don't cover what's going on and document it, nothing is going to be revealed, covered, or established for our people. So definitely we have in every capacity to try and opt onto every project that comes by, be it voting. I'll make sure I vote because I'm in this hemisphere. I don't know how to vote. If that link would be shared, then those who can contribute to the GoFundMe as well. And also, very importantly, you had brought up, Madam Natola, you had brought up the issue about masks and the distribution of masks. I appreciate that it's going to be done on the ground at home.
100%. Mm-hmm.
And if you could say anything more about how we can further participate and contribute to that, because this pandemic, wearing a mask is one of the most primary and fundamental things, and avoiding crowds as well and crowded spaces. If you could expand on the masks and how that project is going to carry on and carry out so that we can be participatory in that aspect.
No, thank you so much, Miss Desire. Yes, and because I've seen it, I work. Just like I said, I work in the epicenter of where all these viruses are and other diseases and stuff. I work in the lab, so to see that, the only thing that helped me was to mask up. Pretty much for 8-10 hours, you're wearing a mask. It's actually not healthy, but it's the best thing you can do. I was not actually using sanitizer. I used to use it once in a while because I have crazy allergies. It has a certain effect it gives me. So what I was doing is to wash my hands. And also sanitizer is not good to use it all the time. It dries up your hands. So soap and water is the most effective way to clean yourself up. But this program, this initiative, I see that it's going to actually be able to create jobs for the people on the ground, but also to help most of our underserved communities. I'm thinking about people who are living in slums. How are they effectively combating this disease? And also, one thing people need to know, these numbers might actually be more. There are people who are dying in their homes and they are numberless. No one knows about them. So we are also dealing with that other aspect we don't know. So please take care of yourselves. I can see Dr. Juko is back. Back to you, Dr. Juko.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, we had some issues with a technical part of it, and I'm sorry for that, viewers. We are trying to wind up this show as we try to thank everyone who has participated in this show and all the views that have been given. This gives us a very good, clear picture of what we are having in Uganda and how really we need to work together as a group to make sure that things go right. In this regard, therefore, Uganda belongs to every one of us, and no one can single-handedly claim to be the owner of it. Therefore, it is our effort as all members of Uganda and those that in Uganda and others in the diaspora to make sure that they fight teeth and nails to make sure that Uganda becomes the way we want it to go. Because of the time, we cannot forget to thank our people as well as we close. And of course, we shall be here on Sunday again, the same time. Don't forget that we have another show that is coming up. That is Henry Gombia, the great journalist, who will be with Paul the end of, after this great show. Thank you very much, viewers. We cannot go beyond that. I thank very much our producer who has done everything possible that the show goes on air, and everyone that has participated, our viewers, and the conversation continues until possibly you share it to everyone that really needs to be understanding what is happening. Thank you very much. God bless you, and God bless Uganda. Thank you.